This is the new 24-inch M3 iMac, and while it does look very similar to the M1 iMac on the outside, it's got some serious upgrades under the hood. Ever since that first M1 iMac was announced back in May of 2021, I've been hoping for a Pro version, or at least like a 27-inch iMac with a beefier chip inside, but unfortunately we still don't have that. This is as close as we can get to a Pro-level iMac with Apple Silicon right now. This is the top-end 24-inch M3 iMac, spec'd out with the upgraded 10-core GPU and 24 gigabytes of RAM, which is as much RAM as Apple is gonna let you put into one of these things. The question is, can this defeat the 14-inch MacBook Pro that I bought a couple of years ago? That's what we're gonna find out. So like I said, on the outside, the 24-inch iMac is virtually identical to the previous version, and in my opinion, that is absolutely not a bad thing. I love the color of this machine. It fits in with the natural green aesthetic that I've slowly cultivated here in my office over the past year. Around back, there are a grand total of 4 USB-C ports, only 2 of which are Thunderbolt. Would I have liked to see an SD card reader or something? Yes. Do I think that most people will care? Probably not. I do really like this color-matched braided power cable though. It's beautiful, and it leads me to one of my favorite things that Apple has done in recent years. They've built an Ethernet port right into the power brick so that you don't have to have that ugly Ethernet cable running up to the back of the iMac. Another reason for that Ethernet port being on the power brick is because the iMac isn't even thick enough to accommodate an Ethernet port. It is crazy how thin this is. It's not even half an inch thick, which is also why they've had to stick the 3.5mm headphone jack on the side of the iMac. The stand of the iMac is lovely. While we don't get height adjustment, there is a generous amount of tilt adjustment, and you can do it with a single finger without moving the iMac around at all. I thought the white bezels were gonna bother me immensely, but seeing them in person against the white walls in my room, I actually kind of find myself somehow liking them. I can see how it would be weird if you had walls that were anything but white though. The screen is a 24-inch 4480 by 2520 IPS display, so it's roughly 4.5K in resolution, and that is a lot of resolution to pack in such a small space. It is very, very sharp, and it's decently bright at 500 nits, which is absolutely bright enough for my office that gets a decent amount of window light. The colors are fantastic on this display. I've been using it to edit my videos for like the past couple of weeks now, and I've had no issues at all with regards to how it looks. The only thing that I don't like about it is that it only runs at a refresh rate of 60 Hertz. This is one of the only displays in my entire house right now that doesn't run at a high refresh rate at this point, and it's kind of a bummer. Surprisingly, I did find myself watching TV on this iMac a lot, not just because of the great display, but also because of the speakers. It is nothing short of amazing what Apple has been able to achieve in terms of sound quality in an all-in-one that's this small and thin. It gets loud enough to easily fill a small to medium-sized room, and even though it doesn't have a ton of bass, the mids and highs are much more crisp than I was expecting. The iMac isn't exactly portable though, so if you're looking for something to play music on that's easy to move around, check out the sponsor of this video, Soundcore. This is the Soundcore Motion X500, a small portable speaker with huge sound. It has 3 amplifiers and 3 full-range drivers, 2 of which that fire outward and 1 that fires upward. The speaker outputs 40 watts of high-res audio, and it sounds awesome. The X500 supports LDAC for high-res music, and it has spatial audio features for room-filling sound. This button on the top lets you switch between the 3 different EQ presets, including spatial signature, spatial dynamic, or bass boost, so that you can get the best sound quality no matter where you are. The LED on the X500 can be changed in the app to correspond to the 3 different presets, or you can make your own with a custom 9-band EQ built right into the Soundcore app. The X500 is incredibly well built with this seamless metal design, and it's IPX7 waterproof too, so even if it's raining outside, you can still use the speaker. It gets 12 hours of battery life, and believe it or not, it's very affordable right now for what's being offered. Right now for Black Friday, you can get 40 bucks off. It's now just $129.99 USD. If you're interested in picking one up for yourself, I'll leave you a link in the description below. You join me in waiting for our lovely iMac here to return to its beautiful screensaver form. Right now we're stuck on the desktop because I accidentally pressed a button, so we're just sitting here, wasting footage, waiting for the darn thing to fix itself. All right, let's talk about performance. As usual, Apple presented some extremely vague graphics and graphs for the M3 chips in their keynote, talking about 2.5 times faster rendering performance, 30% faster performance cores, better power efficiency, and so on and so forth. The base model M3 chip that you'll find inside one of these 24-inch iMacs has an 8-core CPU with 4 efficiency cores and 4 performance cores, along with a 10-core GPU. Now, the distribution of those cores is important. There's an even split split here between efficiency and performance cores. If we look at the M1 Pro chip found in my MacBook Pro from 2021, they're distributed completely differently. 6 of those 8 cores are performance oriented, while only 2 are dedicated to efficiency. There's also a beefier 14-core GPU in the laptop. But what does that mean for performance? I started off with benchmarking both of them, and in Geekbench 6, the M3 iMac managed to defeat the base model M1 Pro in both single core and multi-core. When it comes to the GPU though, the MacBook easily defeated the iMac. That's sort of expected given the extra 4 GPU cores. That's why I was a little bit surprised when I fired up Cinebench 2024 and found that not only did the M3 iMac destroy the M1 Pro in both single core and multi-core, but it also did much better in the GPU test. But look, these synthetic benchmarks aren't always the most accurate. They don't tell the full story. So it's time to move on from that to the real world where things start to change. Starting off with the 5-minute Final Cut Pro export, we can see that the M1 Pro in the MacBook Pro slightly pulls ahead of the M3 iMac with a lower export time. Neither of these devices had any issues scrubbing through the timeline or playing back my 4K 10-bit footage in real time, even with the better quality mode turned on. But there's no doubt that the MacBook Pro gets the slight edge here with the faster GPU. That trend continues when we get into gaming. Starting out easy with Dirt Rally, the MacBook Pro defeats the iMac at both resolutions, even though the MacBook has to push an extra 160 pixels because of its 16:10 aspect ratio. Moving into the much harder to run Baldur's Gate 3, the MacBook Pro stays ahead, achieving more playable frame rates, especially when running at 1080p. Neither of these machines are ideal for gaming, but in a pinch, I'll take the MacBook over the iMac, especially given the 120 Hz refresh rate on the MacBook. But how about we switch to something a little bit less GPU dependent, like compiling code? Running the Xcode benchmark, the iMac finished compiling the code in 145 seconds, while the MacBook took 15 seconds longer at 160 seconds. So if you're an app developer, the 24-inch iMac might actually be a decent computer for you. Even this base model M3 SoC is very impressive, but given that Apple has paired an impressive CPU with a somewhat unimpressive GPU, its uses for professional workloads are pretty limited, even if you go with the most expensive model. I think Apple intended these Macs for users who just want a simple home computer, and the cheapest base model would fill that space decently well. This more upgraded version though, not so much. If you want this iMac with a 10-core GPU and 24 gigs of RAM, it'll set you back $1,900, and that's with a tiny 256GB SSD. If performance is what you're after, you'd be much better off spending a little bit more for an M3 Pro MacBook Pro, or even just going with like a second-hand M1 or M2 laptop with the Pro or Max chips in them. It's a shame too, because this is such a beautiful machine. If only they offered this thing with the high-performance chips that have the better GPUs in them. But hey, maybe that's what they'll do when they finally give us back the 27-inch iMac. Who knows? Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.